They're making plans. The calendar flips. The world prepares for another day. But you can feel it in your spirit. Something's different about July 3. It's not just a date. It's not just another Wednesday. It carries weight. A warning, a divine caution echoing in the spirit realm. And God is saying this as clearly as the thunder that split the sky in the book of Exodus. Don't do this on July 3. You see, most people walk into spiritual traps because they are too busy with physical routines. They don't pause. They don't listen. But the Spirit is speaking loudly, repeatedly. And if you don't listen, you may step into something you won't walk out of easily. This isn't fear. This is foresight. This isn't panic. This is preparation. July 3 is not the day to act in emotion. It's not the day to return that call. Not the day to chase that distraction. Not the day to compromise what you've been healing from. Heaven has already marked it as a day that will test the chosen ones. So what is God saying? Don't do it. Don't do what? Don't settle. Don't surrender your standards. Don't fall for what looks good but is rotten inside. Don't answer that message from someone you had to pray your way out of. Don't walk through a door you forced open when I've closed it for your protection. Because on July 3, your future might just be shaped by one decision, one action, one compromise, one delay, one slip. And so the Spirit of the Lord is sounding the trumpet today. Be still. Be discerning. Be rooted. Be obedient. Because on that day, not everything will be what it seems. July 3 is not just another date on the calendar. It's not a random Wednesday to cruise through without spiritual awareness. In the natural, it might look like any other day, but in the spirit realm, it carries weight. God doesn't highlight a day without purpose. When He singles out a moment in time, it means there's something set in motion, either for your protection or for your progression. And for July 3, He is sounding a divine alarm. Not to panic you, not to scare you, but to awaken your discernment and posture your heart for obedience. The danger of being spiritually dull is that you'll walk blindly into situations that were never meant to be part of your story. You'll say yes to the wrong opportunity. You'll open your heart to the wrong voice. You'll take a step that looks good, feels good, and even seems right, but was never God's will. That's why spiritual sensitivity matters. That's why timing matters. And that's why God is saying, July 3 is different. You see, the enemy is strategic. He knows you've been waiting. He knows you've been frustrated. He's studied your patterns, and he doesn't show up in ways that are obvious. He comes when your guard is down. He whispers when your mind is tired. He offers solutions that bypass process. He speaks through people who sound convincing but are carrying an assignment to derail your destiny. That's why July 3 is not a day to trust your emotions. It's a day to lean fully into the Spirit. The chosen ones are not called to live casually. If you have a divine assignment, you must learn to walk carefully. You must understand the weight of your calling and the cost of disobedience. July 3 could be the day the enemy tries to distract you with a counterfeit. A relationship, a decision, a job, a text, a trip. It won't look like a trap, but your spirit will feel the shift, that uneasiness, that lack of clarity, that small, still voice saying, pause. Don't ignore it. God's warning isn't just about what to avoid. It's also about what to protect. July 3 may be the day your faith is tested not by suffering but by seduction. The enemy won't just try to scare you, he'll try to flatter you. He'll offer you a shortcut that makes you question your weight. A door that opens faster than expected. A voice that says, maybe this is it. But just because a door opens doesn't mean it was God who opened it. When God highlights a date, it means He sees what you cannot. It means something in the unseen is moving, shifting, aligning, and He is inviting you into partnership, through obedience, through stillness, through trust. July 3 is not the time to question the instruction. It's the time to stand firm in what you already know. God speaks to protect His own. He doesn't leave His children blind to danger. He warns those He loves. And if He's saying be careful, it means there's something ahead that doesn't match what it appears to be. This day may not come with fireworks or flashing signs, but your spirit will know. The confirmation will come through unrest. The red flags won't be loud, they'll be subtle. That's why discernment is your greatest weapon on July 3. Don't treat this day like every other day. Fast if you must. Pray more. Cancel the meeting. Postpone the decision. Be unavailable to chaos. Because what happens or doesn't happen on this day might be the turning point of your next season. You are not ordinary, and this is not an ordinary day. July 3 is a divine checkpoint, a spiritual crossroads, and what you choose to do or not do could alter your momentum. God isn't just guiding you, He's guarding you. Listen closely, move slowly, and above all, obey immediately. When God says don't, we often hear it through the filter of restriction. We think He's trying to hold something back from us, limit our options, or delay our desires. But in reality, every don't from God is loaded with love. It's a divine shield, not a prison. It's a father saying, I see what you don't. I know what you can't. Trust me. Obedience is never about punishment, it's always about protection. And if God is telling you, don't do this on July 3, it's because He's already seen the consequence you can't yet imagine. Obedience isn't always exciting, it's not always glamorous. Sometimes it looks like silence, sometimes it feels like missing out. It feels like letting go of something that everyone else is running toward. And in that quiet space, the enemy starts whispering lies. He tells you you're too cautious, too slow, too spiritual. He tells you you're missing your moment. But what you're really doing is stepping under God's covering. You're choosing to be led, not lured. There's a reason obedience is so difficult for our flesh. It requires surrender. It requires trust. It requires walking away from things we want, things that seem good, in favor of things that are holy. But the greatest protection you'll ever have is not in your own wisdom, your savings, or your experience. It's in obedience. Because where God guides, He also shields. And if He's warning you about July 3, it means He's already built a fortress around that day. You just need to stay inside the walls of His will. Some dangers don't show themselves immediately. Some traps look like open doors. Some heartbreaks are dressed as blessings. And if you move without God, you'll find yourself in battles you were never meant to fight. Obedience keeps you aligned with divine timing. It keeps you out of unnecessary warfare. It keeps you grounded when your emotions want to run wild. And on a day like July 3, when spiritual traps are being set for the distracted and the impulsive, obedience may be the only thing that saves you from a regret you can't reverse. You've prayed for clarity. You've asked God for direction. And now He's giving it, but it's coming in the form of a boundary. And this is where maturity is revealed. Can you receive the answer when it's not the one you wanted? Can you honor the instruction even when it costs you convenience? Because the truth is, the biggest breakthroughs in life often don't come from what we pursue, but from what we refuse to pursue. The doors we don't open, the people we don't run after, the texts we don't send, the impulses we don't follow. God doesn't need to explain every detail when He gives a command. His job is not to convince us, it's to lead us. And our job is not to argue, it's to obey. Some blessings are hidden behind the no. Some victories are wrapped inside the wait. And July 3 could be the day your obedience creates a ripple of protection over your entire future. Just because something is available doesn't mean it's meant for you. Just because it's permissible doesn't mean it's profitable. And just because it makes sense doesn't mean it's safe. When you obey God's warning, you enter a realm of trust that cannot be shaken by human reasoning. You may not know what you avoided until much later, but your spirit will sense that you were spared. You'll look back and realize that one act of restraint, one moment of stillness, preserved your peace, your purpose, and your power. So when the urge rises to act, to chase, to settle, to react, pause. Remember the instruction. Obedience isn't a burden, it's your armor. It's your survival. It's your honor. And if God said don't do it on July 3, trust that what He's protecting you from is far greater than what you think you're giving up. There are moments in life when the past comes knocking. Sometimes it knocks gently, with the whisper of old memories. Other times it bangs on the door of your heart, demanding to be let back in. July 3 is one of those days where the past may try to make a grand re-entry. But God is warning you. Don't go back to what He delivered you from. Don't romanticize what nearly destroyed you. Don't confuse a familiar voice with a divine appointment. Just because something once felt like home doesn't mean it still belongs in your life. The enemy loves to recycle temptation. He's not always creative, but he's consistent. He'll bring back what you used to love, what you used to need, what you used to crave, hoping that your delay has made you desperate enough to return. But desperation makes dangerous decisions. And when you're in a season of waiting, the wrong voice can sound like the right one simply because it's loud. That's why discernment must rise above emotion on July 3. God didn't pull you out of that relationship, that habit, that mindset just for you to crawl back the moment it starts to hurt. You didn't cry your way through healing just to fall back into the same cycle. You didn't fight your way out of the pit just to dive back into it. Going back may feel easy, but it will cost you everything you gained in obedience. What God delivered you from wasn't just unhealthy, it was a prison, and freedom always comes with the temptation to return to bondage. Ask the Israelites. They longed for Egypt, even while God was guiding them to the promised land. But comfort doesn't mean covenant. On July 3, you may feel a pull to text someone you let go, to revisit a situation you left behind, to reconsider a door that was shut for your protection. But feelings are not facts. Just because you feel something doesn't mean God is in it. Sometimes the enemy plays with your emotions to reopen wounds God was healing. He uses nostalgia as a weapon. He uses loneliness as bait. And if you're not careful, you'll walk right back into what God dragged you out of. The danger of going back is that it feels safe. It feels familiar. And in seasons of uncertainty, we crave what's familiar. But God didn't bring you this far just to rewind your progress. You didn't spend nights in prayer, tears in silence, and hours in worship just to return to the place that broke you. Freedom is costly, healing is painful, deliverance takes time, but going back will only multiply the pain and delay your destiny. You have to remember why you left. You have to recall the confusion, the chaos, the spiritual dryness that came from being connected to something not ordained by God. You have to rehearse the pain, not the fantasy. The enemy will never show you the truth of your past, only a filtered version. He won't remind you of the heartbreak, the warfare, the sleepless nights. He'll just show you the moments that make you second-guess your decision. But faith means trusting the freedom more than the familiarity. July 3, when the old calls you, don't answer. When the past resurfaces, don't engage. When the door reopens, don't walk through it. You don't owe explanations to what God ended. You don't need closure from what God closed. Let the past stay buried. Let the healing continue. Don't trade your future for a familiar chain. You are not who you were when you first said yes to that situation. You're stronger now, wiser, anointed, and with that anointing comes the responsibility to protect your progress. God didn't just free you, He positioned you. Don't let one emotional moment on July 3 sabotage the deliverance you bled for. If God delivered you from it, that means He never intended for you to return. Let your no be final. Let your boundaries be firm, and let your freedom speak louder than your feelings. The most dangerous traps aren't the obvious ones. The enemy is far too cunning for that. He doesn't always come in darkness. He often comes disguised as light. He won't always tempt you with sin that screams evil. Sometimes he lures you with what appears to be good, right, even godly. And that's what makes July 3 so dangerous. God is warning you not about a blatant attack, but about a subtle snare, a decision, a door, or a person that seems right but is not. This is not a test of your willpower, it's a test of your discernment. There are moments when the enemy knows he can't pull you back into sin, so he'll push you into distraction. He'll wrap a trap in opportunity. He'll speak through someone you admire. He'll offer something that sounds like your answer. And if you aren't rooted in God's voice, you'll say yes to something that's not your assignment. The enemy isn't just trying to derail your faith, he's after your focus. Because if he can't destroy you, he'll distract you. If he can't stop your calling, he'll delay it through detours that feel divine but aren't. On July 3, something may present itself to you, a relationship offer, a business proposal, a conversation, or a moment of pressure that demands a decision. And on the surface, it may seem like the exact thing you've been praying for. But just because it looks right doesn't mean it's from God. Even Eve was deceived by something that looked good for food and pleasing to the eye. The serpent didn't offer her death, he offered her insight. But insight without divine instruction is a curse. It was a trap masked as a blessing. That's what you need to guard against on July 3. The counterfeit blessing, the fast-track breakthrough, the almost right relationship, the nearly answered prayer. It will look like God. It might even sound like Him, but it won't come with His peace. It won't align with the conviction of the Spirit. And if you're not tuned in, you'll make a permanent decision based on temporary emotion. God is not the author of confusion. He doesn't send blessings that demand you compromise your standards. He doesn't open doors that make you question your worth. He doesn't give relationships that cause you to lose your identity. When it's from God, it won't just fit your life, it will feed your purpose. And if something shows up on July 3 and causes you to hesitate in your spirit, pause before you proceed, because the trap is not always in what's bad, it's in what's almost right. Discernment is your defense. Not every offer is divine. Not every open door is a green light. Some opportunities are actually distractions in disguise. And the enemy is hoping that you're so tired of waiting that you'll say yes to anything that seems better than where you are. But desperation is dangerous. And when you move from a place of desperation, you'll settle for anything that relieves your discomfort, even if it costs your destiny. That's why this moment matters. July 3 isn't about testing your morals. It's about testing your maturity. Can you walk away from something that looks like the answer because God hasn't confirmed it yet? Can you turn down what feels like progress because peace is absent? Can you trust that what God has for you is still coming even when a counterfeit shows up first? You've come too far to fall for what looks familiar. You've grown too much to confuse imitation for authenticity. And the truth is, when the real blessing comes, it won't require guessing. It won't need to be forced. It won't drain you or distract you. It will align, it will flow, it will bring clarity. So if something on July 3 feels off, don't ignore the feeling. If peace is missing, don't explain it away. The enemy won't tempt you with poison. He'll tempt you with fruit. That's not for your season. Trust God's warning. Trust the hesitation. And trust that saying no today is making room for what God is preparing for you tomorrow. There is a sacred strength in stillness, a divine power in waiting, and a supernatural wisdom in doing nothing when everything around you screams for action. July 3 will be a day when pressure rises, decisions demand your attention, and emotions beg to lead you. But God is whispering a clear instruction. Don't move too fast. Don't rush. Don't react. Delay the decision. Delay the conversation. Delay the impulse. In a world that idolizes urgency, the Spirit is calling you to pause. Stillness is not weakness, it's warfare. It is the ability to remain grounded while your emotions attempt to run wild. It is the choice to stand still when your mind is racing to fix what only God can handle. Stillness doesn't mean you lack options. It means you trust God's vision more than your own understanding. And that's what July 3 will test. Not just your patience, but your posture. Will you slow down long enough to hear God? Will you silence the noise long enough to discern His voice? The enemy knows the power of haste. He uses urgency as a tactic to blur your vision. When you're in a hurry, you lose clarity. You lose discernment. You stop praying and start reacting. And that's exactly where mistakes are born. When you make decisions under pressure instead of peace. Not every deadline is divine. Not every opportunity is meant to be seized in the moment. Sometimes, the most spiritual thing you can do is wait. On July 3, there may be pressure to make a choice. Maybe it's a relationship you're unsure about. Maybe it's a financial commitment you're debating. Maybe it's a door that looks promising but comes too quickly. The world will tell you to move fast or you'll miss out. But God never speaks through panic. He doesn't rush those He loves. When it's Him, there will be peace, even if there's no explanation. And when peace is absent, that's not your cue to push forward. It's your sign to be still. There's a difference between delay and disobedience. Delaying a decision isn't always avoidance. Sometimes it's alignment. You're not saying no forever. You're just saying not without confirmation. That's spiritual maturity. That's what separates the impulsive from the intentional. God isn't just interested in what you choose, He cares how you choose it. And if you rush into something on July 3 that He hasn't breathed on, you may find yourself repairing a mistake that prayer could have prevented. Waiting is not wasted time, it is preparation, it is pruning, it is God shaping your discernment so you can recognize the real thing when it finally arrives. Stillness creates space for heaven to speak. And in that silence, you will gain something deeper than answers. You will gain perspective. You will begin to see what your emotions try to hide. You will begin to recognize red flags that once looked like green lights. Illness is where the Spirit clarifies what confusion tried to blur. The need to act immediately often comes from fear, fear of missing out, fear of rejection, fear of losing something. But anything built on fear won't last. God's blessings don't need to be forced. His timing doesn't require panic. His plans are never in a hurry, but they are always on time. So when the moment comes on July 3 and your heart wants to rush, pause, take a breath, step back, pray again. You will never regret a decision made in peace, but you will always wrestle with the consequences of a rushed move. July 3 could be the day that tests your willingness to wait. And if you pass the test, if you hold the line, if you trust that God is never late, you will walk into something greater than what haste could have ever delivered. In the quiet, there is protection. In the pause, there is wisdom. In the delay, there is destiny. Don't confuse movement with momentum. Don't confuse action with purpose. Sometimes the most powerful move is no move at all. So on July 3, be still, be anchored, and let God lead the way. Every now and then there comes a day that acts like a hinge. One decision, one response, one act of obedience, and everything begins to shift. July 3 has been marked by God as such a day. It may seem like an ordinary moment on the surface, but in the spirit realm, it carries the potential to unlock an entire season. And what you choose to obey or disobey on that day could shape the trajectory of your future. You're not just avoiding a mistake. You're stepping into divine alignment through simple, quiet, radical obedience. God isn't looking for your perfection. He's after your surrender. Sometimes it's not about doing more. It's about resisting the urge to do what feels natural when He's calling you to something supernatural. The flesh will want to act. Your feelings will crave movement. Your thoughts will create scenarios and strategies. But the Spirit may simply say, wait, trust, don't touch it yet. And if you obey that nudge, you realize that you didn't miss anything. You actually preserved everything. There are moments in our walk with God where obedience looks like denial. You have to deny the text you want to send, deny the meeting you want to take, deny the justification for re-entering something God already delivered you from. On July 3, it won't just be a test of your discernment, it will be a test of your discipline. Can you say no when everything in you wants to say yes? Can you close the door even when the opportunity seems perfect? Can you trust that God's not yet is still a blessing in disguise? Obedience isn't just about what we start doing. It's also about what we stop doing, what we refuse, what we walk away from. And sometimes that one refusal changes everything. Think of Abraham climbing the mountain with Isaac. That one act of obedience not only proved his faith but unlocked a generational blessing. Think of Joseph resisting Potiphar's wife. That decision cost him temporary freedom, but protected his long-term assignment. God doesn't forget acts of obedience. He builds futures on them. July 3 may come and go with no loud signs, no dramatic thunder, no visible celebration. But your obedience on that day could send shockwaves into the spirit realm. You may not see the immediate result, but you will sense the shift. You'll sense that you've passed something, a test, a checkpoint, a moment of divine evaluation. God is always watching the heart posture, not just the outward performance. He sees your restraint. He honors your stillness. He moves in response to your obedience. It's easy to obey when it's convenient, when everything makes sense, when everyone applauds you. But the obedience God is asking for on July 3 won't come with applause. It will come with silence. It will feel lonely. It may even feel like loss. But heaven will be watching. Angels will be dispatched. Protection will be released. Favor will begin forming like clouds before the rain, all because you obeyed when no one else understood. That's the beauty of radical trust. You don't need to know the full picture. You just need to know the one painting it. You don't need to see the outcome. You just need to stay in step with the whisper of the Holy Spirit. And if that whisper says, don't do it, then obedience becomes your warfare, your strategy, and your covering. Obedience is rarely clamorous, but it is always powerful. It positions you for divine moments you never imagined. What you turn down today may unlock what you've been praying for tomorrow. That's why July 3 matters. It's not just a warning, it's an invitation. An invitation to trust God deeply, to follow Him closely, to say yes to His way, even when it costs you your own. And in doing so, you may not see lightning or hear thunder, but you will walk in favor, protection, and purpose beyond what you thought was possible, all because you chose to obey.